We are in Unit 4 and today is the second lecture of Unit 4. Today we are going to discuss what is firewall landscape, what firewall identify, then we discuss scanning through firewall, especially packet filtering, then we discuss application proxy vulnerabilities. Firewall. Firewall is a wall of separation between insecure internet and secure internet network. So, if you see the pictures, firewall is a wall between here. It is a between client and server. It may be anywhere. So the basic definition is it's a wall of separation between the secure internet and secure internal network. Firewall monitors incoming and outgoing connection for various rules and patterns and filters the connection passing through them. There are so many types of firewall. Packet filtering firewall, circuit level firewall, application firewall, stateful firewall, and evading firewall. Packet filtering firewall. This type of firewall monitors the TCP packet header at TCP level and looks for the source address, destination address, source port, destination port, and the protocol used. Depending on these details, they either allow or disallow the packets according to the rules written where? Rule written. Rule written inside the firewall policy or inside the setting of firewall. So there is a rule any AT allow. This rule tells firewall to allow any packets coming from any source going to any source to the port 80 to be allowed. That means coming from any source and going to any source to the port 80 has to be allowed. What is 80? 80 is a HTTP port. So from any parts of the globe, if any from mobile, from their laptop, from cyber cafe, from where, if someone asking the request to access some HTTP web page, then we have to allow. There Second type of firewall is circuit level firewall. They operate at the session layer and filter at the connections. Even before the packets are transmitted, they look for the trusted connections and filter based on those trusted connections. Otherwise, there are third type of firewall is application firewall. So we have discussed packet filtering firewall, we have discussed circuit level firewall. Third type of firewall is application firewall. It otherwise called or it also called as a proxy firewall. They accept at the application layer, filtering the application level packets. At the proxy, different rules can be given to filter the data. The web server, which are usually accessed by the internet users, are placed outside the internal network as proxy servers, and all connection can be directed to the proxy, thus protecting the internal network from outside connection. So there is a one stand called standard packet firewall. There is another called secure AX web application firewall. There is a web server. So a standard packet firewall will deny non-HTTP attacks, but they bypass HTTP attacks. But the secure AX web application firewall stop HTTP attacks also. But legitimate traffic will not stop neither by a standard packet firewall nor by secure AX web application firewall. That's why it is written here. The web server which are usually accessed by the internet user are placed outside the internal network as proxy servers, and all connection can be directed to the proxy, thus protecting the internal networks from outside connections. So After discussing packet filtering firewall, circuit level firewall, application firewall, fourth type of firewall is stateful firewall. This is a combination of all three firewall. All three means packet filtering firewall, circuit level firewall, and application firewall. It operates at the network layer, filtering transport level packets, session level connections, and application data as well. This has a state table which maintains the status of various connections and a rules table. It also keeps tracks of sequence number to protect against related attacks. So there is a client system, there is a server. In between, we put a stateful packet filtering firewall. Packet flow directly from client to server, provided they match either an allow rule or a state table input. So after discussing packet filtering firewall, circuit level firewall, application firewall, the and stateful firewall, the next type of firewall is called evading firewall. They use fragmented packets. They use firewalking to scan beyond the firewall for open ports. We use source routing, avoiding the routes of firewall. We use HTTP tunneling and ICMP tunneling. Then we should know what is a packet filtering. So, in order to understand the packet filtering, let us think we are in a coffee shop. First, as a customer, we give our order to the cashier. The cashier then passes the order to the barista. This process allows the line to keep running smoothly as more customers come in. Suppose that some customer try to skip the cashier line and give their orders directly to the barista. This disrupts the flow of traffic and results in customer accessing a part of the coffee shop that is restricted to them. So see, many customers are coming and they are giving their order to cashiers and cashiers are passing that orders to barista and barista is making the coffee. But some customer try to give their order directly to barista in order to save money or in order to hack the system. They will not pay and they will drink coffee. They want to not pay to cashier, but they want to drink to coffee. So they try to give their orders directly to the barista. So what happened? To fix this, the owner of the coffee shop divides the counter area by placing the cashiers and the barista in separate workstations. The cashier workstation is public facing and designed to receive customers. The barista area is a private. Barista can still receive orders from the cashier but not directly from the customers. So what we'll do? We'll put firewall here. So customer give their order to the cashier and cashier passes that order to barista. But if some customer try to give their order directly to barista, customers are prevented from giving their order to the barista because we put a firewall here. So So what we are doing here actually, we are dividing this coffee shop network into two parts. One will be public, another will be private. So public subnet contains resources that need to be accessible by the public, such as online stores website or maybe cashiers of coffee shop. Private subnet contains resources that should be accessible only through your private network, such as database that contains customers' personal information and order history. And this is architecture of AWS Cloud. Inside AWS Cloud, there is a VPC. So inside a region of AWS Cloud, there is a VPC, that is a virtual private cloud. And inside virtual private cloud, there are two types of network. One is a public subnet, other is a private subnet. Public subnet has Amazon EC2 instances or maybe the website or maybe the front end. Private subnet consists of databases. So here what we are putting one virtual firewall. So we'll know what is virtual firewall. So till now what we have studied, packet filtering, circuit level application, stateful, evading, these all are physical firewall. Now we are going to discuss virtual firewall. So network access control list, or in abbreviated form called ACL, is a virtual firewall that control inbound and outbound traffic at the subnet level. For example, step outside of the coffee shop and imagine that you are in an airport. In the airport, travelers are trying to enter into different countries. You can think of the travelers as packets and passport control officer as a network ACL. The passport control officer checks travelers' credential when they are both entering or exiting out of the country. If a traveler is on approved list, they are able to get through. However, if they are not on the approved list or are explicitly on a list of banned travelers, they cannot come in. So what happens? Each AWS account includes a default network ACL. When configuring your VPC, you can use your account's default network ACL or create custom network ACL. So recap, what is ACL? ACL is a network access control list. And what is a AWS? AWS is a Amazon Web Services. So by default, your account's default network ACL allow all inbound and outbound traffic, but you can modify it by adding your own rule. So in front of public subnet, we put network access control list. So network ACL perform stateless packet filtering. They remember nothing and check packets that cross the subnet border each way, inbound and outbound. Recall the previous example of a traveler who wants to enter into a different country. This is similar to sending a request out from an Imagine EC2 instance and to the internet. When a packet response for that request comes back to the subnet, the network ACL does not remember your previous request. The network ACL checks the packet response against its list of rules to determine whether to allow or deny. So, so why it is stateless? Because it remember nothing. It check packets response against its list of rules to determine whether to allow or deny every time. So see, after a packet has entered a subnet, it must have its permission evaluated for the resource within the subnet, such as image and EC2 instances. So the traveler say, I would like to enter. The passport control officer say, okay, I will check whether you are on the list. Similarly, when he was going to leave the country, he said, I would like to exist. Again, passport control officer, check, I will check whether you are on the list. But the VPC component that check packet permissions for an Imagine EC2 instance is a security group. And security group deals with stateful packet filtering. So now it's looking perfect. So there was access control list for stateless packet filtering. But when we discuss stateful packet filtering, ACL term will replace with security groups. A security group is also a virtual firewall. ACL is also a virtual firewall. But a security group controls inbound and outbound traffic for an Amazon EC2 instance. ACL also controls inbound and outbound traffic for an Amazon EC2 instance. By default, a security group denies all inbound traffics and allow all outbound traffics. You can add custom rules to configure which traffics to allow or deny. So for ACL, we are assuming passport control officers are ACL. But for this example, we have to suppose you are in an apartment building with a door attendant who greets guests in the lobby. And you can think of the guest as a packet and door attendant or as a security guard group or security guard as a security group. So as guest arrives, Security guard or door attendant checks a list to ensure they can enter the building. However, the door attendant does not check the list again when the guests are exiting the building. So when we go for any apartment, they take entry. When we are coming, they confirm it on us. But when we are exiting, they do not bother us. Okay, we let us exit. If you have a multiple Amazon EC2 instances within a subnet, you can associate them with the same security group, or you can use different security group for each instance. So see again, security group perform stateful packet filtering. They remember previous decision made for incoming packets. Consider the same example of sending a request out from an Amazon EC2 instances to the internet. When a packet response for that request returns to the instance, the security groups remember your previous request. The security group allow the response to proceed regardless of inbound security rules. So see what happened. Guest come. He say, I am leaving, but I will write back. Do attendant say, okay, I will see when you get back. So what happened here? He come again. He say, hi again, I am back. He say, okay, I remember. You go ahead. So it happens when you visit some apartment, this type of behavior, security guards or do attendant, and the same behavior security groups also have. So again, recap. Both network ACL and security group enable you to configure customs rules for the traffic in your VPC. VPC is virtual private cloud. As you continue to learn more about AWS security and networking, we have to make sure to understand the difference between network ACL and security groups. So, network ACL is taken as a passport officer and security group taken as a doormat. There is a client packet is coming via internet. So if it is a coming via internet, so in order to reach the virtual private cloud, it will pass through some internet gateway. Then it will first check by network access control list. That is a passport officer. That means if someone coming in your country, then it will again check on the gate of apartment. So two virtual firewall have two different features. So now there is a one knowledge check. When we isolate database containing customer personal information, then we have to configure private subnet. But when we create a VPN connection between the VPC and the internal corporate network, there will virtual private gateway. When we support the customer facing website, there will public subnet. When we establish a dedicated connection between the on-premises data center and the VPC, there is a AWS direct connect. So now quiz, two questions. Which statement best describe an AWS account's default network access control list? Options. It is stateless and deny all inbound and outbound traffics. It is stateful and allow all inbound and outbound traffic. It is stateless and allow all inbound and outbound traffic. It is stateful and denies all inbound and outbound traffic. So we have no network access control list. Okay? And we remember they are stateless. So the B and D eliminated, only A and C stateless. So it is a stateless and deny all inbound and outbound traffics. A. And C is it is a stateless and allow all inbound and outbound traffic. No. It virtually deny all. Then they checks their access control list and they allow only that is available in their access control list. So option A is true. Which statement best describes security groups? Now security group is stateful. So A and B are stateful, C and D are stateless. So C and D eliminated. Now we check A and B. They are stateful and deny, and they are stateful and allow all inbound traffic by default. So here option is let us think, and you can read again and you can assume which one is correct. So now the next topic of today's lecture is application proxy vulnerability. In general, application proxy vulnerability are few. Once you have secured the firewall itself and implemented solid proxy rules, you will be hard pressed to bypass a proxy firewall. But never fear, misconfiguration are common. First misconfiguration is called host name. With some older Unix proxy, it was easy to miss restricting local access. Despite authentication requirement for your user when accessing the internet, it was possible for an internal user to gain local access on the firewall itself. Of course, this attack requires knowledge of a valid username and password on the firewall. So you had be surprised how easy these are to guess sometimes. To check proxy firewalls for this vulnerability, you can do the following when you receive this login screen. We type in localhost. We enter a non-username or password, or we guess a few. If authentication works, you have local access on the firewall. You can run a local buffer overflow such as RDIST or a similar exploit to gain root. So there are few countermeasures to avoid this proxy vulnerability. The fix for this misconfiguration depend largely on the specific firewall product. In general, you can provide a host restriction rule that limits the access from a particular site. The ideal countermeasures is to not allow localhost logins. Then there is an unauthenticated external proxy access. This scenario is more common with firewalls that employ transparent proxy, but we do see it from time to time. The firewall administrator will go to great lengths to secure the firewall and create a strong access rules, but then forget to block outside access. It may happen. So the risk is twofold. An attacker can use your proxy servers to hop all around the internet anonymously, attacking web server with web-based attacks such as CGI vulnerability and web fraud. Second is an attacker can gain web access to your intranet. We have come across a firewall configured this way and it allowed us to access the company entire intranet. So you can check whether your firewall is vulnerable by changing your browser proxy settings to point to the suspected firewall. To do this in Netscape, we perform the following steps. select Edit Preferences, select the Advanced and Proxy subtrees. We check the Manual Proxy Configuration button. You can also select the View button. So these are the three steps. And fourth step is select the View button, add the firewall in questions in the HTTP address and select the port it is listening on. This is usually 80, 81, 8000, 8080, but will vary greatly. Use Nmap or similar tool to scan for correct port. Point your browser to your favorite website. Note that status bar activity. If the browser status bar displays the proxy server being accessed and the web page comes up, you probably have an unauthenticated proxy server. So there are few countermeasures also. The prevention for this vulnerability is to disallow proxy access from the external interface of the firewall. Because the technique for doing this is highly vendor dependent, you will need to contact your firewall vendor for further information. The network solution is to restrict incoming proxy traffic at your border routers. This can be easily accomplished with some tight ACLs on your routers. Third is WinGet vulnerability. The popular Windows 95 NT 2000 proxy firewall WinGet has been known to have a couple of vulnerabilities. Most of these stems from lax default parameters including unauthenticated telnets, socks, and web. Although access to these services can be restricted by their users and interface, many simply install the product as is to get it up and running, forgetting about the security. So, like many misconfigured proxies, certain WinGet version, especially 2.1D for Windows, allow outsiders to browse the network completely anonymously. This is important for attackers who target web server application in particular because they can hack to their heart's content with little risk of being caught. As a general rule, you have a little defense against web attacks because all traffic is tunneled in TCP port 80 or encrypted in TCP port 443, that is SSL or HTTPS. To check whether your WinGet server are vulnerable, we have to follow following steps. We attach to the internet with an unfiltered connection, preferably dial-up. Change your browser's configuration to point to a proxy servers. Now, these are somehow not existing, but this is a part of syllabus, so you should specify the servers and ports in questions. Also vulnerable in a default configuration is the unauthenticated SOCKS proxy, that is TCP/1080. As with the open web proxy, TCP/80, an attacker can browse the internet bouncing through these servers and remaining almost completely anonymous, especially if logging is turned off. So there are few countermeasures also. So prevent this vulnerability with WinGet. You can simply restrict the bindings of a specific service. You can perform the following steps on a multi-home system to limit where proxy services are open. First is select the SOCKS or www proxy server property. Second is select the binding tabs. Third is check the connection will be accepted on the flowing interface only button and then specify the internal interface of your WinGet server. So we finish today's lectures. Unit 4 lecture to update it. Okay, so tomorrow when you have a time, then you can message me. I may take one class or two because at least I have to take 3 lecture in Unit 4. Said that means total 5 lecture, 2 I have taken, 3 I have to take. And at least I have to take 2 lectures in Unit 5, so 5 lectures are remaining. Maybe next week there will be class, both will finish. So if I take at least 1 lecture tomorrow, so rest 4 lectures will finish next week, Monday, Tuesday. And now going to stop the recording.